So I watched the Venom movie, and let me say right off the bat, I think that it was worth the price of admission, and if you haven't watched it already, I suggest that you do. Go! Pause this video and drive, or bike, or sprint, or even crawl if you have to your nearest movie theater right now. This video review will still be here when you get back. Hopefully. Unless the symbiotes really do land on the Earth somehow and they kill us all because we're pathetic and unsuitable organisms that they won't tolerate. Anyway, as I was saying, the movie is well worth the few dollars or pesos or whatever your currency is, and I say that as someone who didn't pay a single coin or bill to see it, because when you have awesome relatives, they love you enough to spontaneously invite you to see it just because they can. So thanks, Nasenia, I appreciate it, especially since I had been looking forward to the movie pretty much since it was first announced. With that said, this is pretty much the very first review of a movie I've ever written or done, so here's a disclaimer that says that I'm in no way a professional film critic, but I'm sure that's about to become evident. But yet again, I don't care that I'm not, because the average Joe or Juan or Jane or Juana like you and I are the ones that truly matter, seeing as we're the masses that pack the theaters and make these franchises the successes that they are. I already told you that I feel the movie is worth the ticket price, and it definitely is, because I was entertained the whole way through. It wasn't amazing by any means, but this is a Venom movie, goddammit, and the word amazing is reserved for Spider-Man, isn't it? Yes, it is. That was a rhetorical question. If you've yet to watch the movie, this is your one and only spoiler warning. You've been warned, so let's web swing into business. So since this is its own franchise and it unfortunately isn't part of the MCU, which is a terribly missed opportunity in my mind and in the minds of many, but hey, companies love having their IPs and their legal battles, right? Of course they do. Eddie Brock doesn't have a red webhead to be pissed off at and chase down to tear his head off. Instead, there's a small, thin Indian fucker whose name I've already forgotten and who has more money than Tony Stark, and he gets his hands on some of the symbiotes, which he quickly starts letting loose on animals and then upgrades to hobos desperate to make a quick buck. Suffice to say, there's a doctor who tries to bring up how it's highly unethical to start experimenting on people when it's still way too soon to see if they'd come to harm, but him, being the not-so-big baddie that he is, basically threatens to harm her family if she continues to try to oppose him, and carries on with the experiments anyway, hoping to achieve perfect symbiosis because he believes that would create a superior life form. So, pretty villainy stuff that is pretty easy to follow. Mr. Evil Indian Genius is the one that gets Eddie Brock fired in this story instead of Peter Parker, which causes his fiancée to also get fired from her own job, and so he leaves him, and then he loses his apartment and, well, pretty much everything that he had. After Mr. Evil Indian Man threatens Mrs. Good Ethical Doctor, she tracks down Eddie and finds him at his favorite goods store and asks him for his help to stop Evil Indian Lex Luthor, which he initially refuses but then later agrees to, and she gets him into the place where the symbiote experiments are taking place, and this is where Eddie ends up bonding with Venom, after he finds Maria Hobo Lady in one of the glass cells where the experiments are observed and tries to break her out of there. This leads to Dr. Neocortex sending his generic goons to hunt Eddie down, and this is what leads to the action scenes seen in the trailers, as well as some others. Anyway, Eddie gets his ex-wife and her replacement Eddie involved. She and him both are nowhere near as scared of Eddie for being possessed by a deadly alien jello as any sane person would be, and all this ultimately leads to the final fight. Throughout the movie, we see the Riot symbiote pass on from person to person until it eventually finds evil Dr. Doofenshmirtz in his testing labs, and with the symbiote now bonded to him, they plot to get into a rocket together, travel through space, and bring back with them the millions of other symbiotes so he can satisfy his stiffy for his Hitler-like dreams of creating a superior race. There's a lot of cool action scenes in the movie in which Venom single-handedly takes out the generic goons, and in true Venom fashion, he tears off a few heads and even eats a whole person at the end, all while enjoying it and having some funny back and forths with Eddie, which, as you might have already heard by now, is one of the best parts of the film. Their interactions with one another never got old, and they always at least made me smile. Watching Venom grab one jackass by the leg and swing him at other jackasses like a meat club was also very satisfying to see. Ultimately, at the end, Venom goes head-to-head with Riot, and thanks to not Mrs. Brock, they both temporarily get separated from their hosts, but Dr. Indian Evil gets Riot back first and stabs Eddie through the chest, so he's left there bleeding and almost dies until Venom finds him and bonds with him again. Riot gets inside the massive metal space dong that its host probably feels he already had to begin with, but Venom climbs it, tears through it as it launches, and it spills a shit ton of rocket fuel that causes an explosion that kills Riot and almost kills Venom and Eddie as well. Ultimately though, Eddie falls into water and he's fine, and we later see that Venom is also fine and bonds with him again, and like in the comics, we see them both talking to each other and trying to establish rules for one another so that they can coexist in the world without ripping everyone and everything's heads off. So once more, to wrap this whole thing up, I thought the movie was entertaining and definitely worth a watch. Judging by the trailers, I didn't go into it expecting it to blow me away and leave me with feelings of wonder. It was a decent movie that made me laugh a few times, and it's definitely not as bad as all the terrible review scores that so many of the internet critics have given it. I obviously didn't lay out every single little detail or scene of the movie in this review, but that's why you should go and watch it if you haven't already, so you can see all the little details of it for yourself and enjoy the movie for what it is. And how about that ending teaser in which Cletus Cassidy confirms that Carnage is finally coming to the big screen in the future? That was pretty fucking sick. The world has been ready for a big time Carnage appearance pretty much since the character was introduced, and now he's finally getting his due, and he'll undoubtedly make the movie powers that be even more money. Anyway, I've kept you here long enough, so like or dislike this video as you see fit, leave a comment about what you liked or didn't like about the movie, subscribe, yada yada, you know how this whole YouTube thing works by now, don't you? Links to the channel's Instagram and Twitter are in the description, so do what you will and I'll catch your ass here next time. Or maybe I'll go up your ass like Eddie said the Venom symbiote did to him and the evil guy. And yes, I know he isn't Indian, but I won't be surprised if I still get comments from people correcting me. Eddie, now let's pile up the skulls in the corner. Pile of bodies, pile of heads.